Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is New Year's Day, and wanting to bring up the idea and the concept of COVID. Let's talk. Let's talk about this virus. What's true? What's not true? But before we do that, I want to call in the angels and ask for their support in talking about this real life discussion of what is going on with COVID. Is it government shutdown? Is it real? Is it the flu? Is it paranoia? Is it fear mongering? Let's find out the truth. You want to? I'm curious too. So, as a channel, I'm going to ask Archangel Michael right now. I'm tired of all this arguing. Yeah, it was interesting to me that maybe it was about 15 years ago. I was doing a large channeling session. I think there were, I don't know how many people in the room, but somebody asked how uh, Alzheimer's came to be and what Alzheimer's was. And Archangel Michael had answered. At that point, I didn't know that aluminum and other mercury were playing a part in Alzheimer's. And detoxing metals from the body was one way to keep the mind clear. But not only because of things that are sort of distasteful to talk about, right? Because we like some of the conveniences in our lives. And some of you may or may not align with what they call quote unquote conspiracy theories. There's no judgment here. I'm in a non-judgment zone. But the point being that there is underlying ethics that are in question. And there are profiteers in this world who really do put corporate dollars ahead of human health. That is a no-brainer. That is just, that happens probably at least 50% of the time, right? And that's enough to tilt the balance in terms of overall health and the impact of corporate decisions. A lot of people will say that's corporate greed. Other people say it's written into the stock portfolio of a company that they have to maintain a certain level of profitability for their investors, according to law. And so even if that's polluting the environment or hurting wildlife or hurting people, it's like too bad, so sad. It's part of law that the investors have a right to make a profit. So what's changing now is that the earth can't handle the pressure of this any longer. And many of the symptoms that have come along, including the flu and other viruses, have an impact on our health as well as on the health of the water, which impacts wildlife all around the world, the air, the soil, the lack of minerals and nutrients that we get in our food, plus the amount of filtration of these small microplastics that are floating through the air, ending up in our water supply, ultimately in our bodies. Our bodies are having to work really hard to clear pollutants. And this impacts your nervous system, which impacts your emotions, which impacts your overall health. And it's a closed loop in a way that the the less well you feel, the more likely you are to grab foods that have high concentrations of palm oil, for instance, or carbohydrates, or caffeine, or sugar. And if you look at the results of stress in a whole system, especially according to the rules and the complications of consumer products and where they come from and how they're sourced, then you have these issues like cane sugar, which requires clear cutting of tropical forests in order to grow the cane sugar. And so here in the West, we might laugh and joke about how we crave sugar and think it's so lighthearted. But the fragments of that humor are actually in the roots and the base of some of the tropical forests that are being lost. Now, this is just what I'm hearing from Archangel Michael right now, so don't shoot the messenger. I am just conveying the interconnection of systems. Okay. Same with caffeine and coffee. There's the same sort of clearing of tropical forests in order to have that divine cup of coffee that you love so much. And so there's this idea of fair trade. There's an idea of compromising what feels good to those who can afford to feel good at the expense of those who are suffering the impact. And this goes on, right? So there's many stories throughout history that this has gone on. So any pollution from mining for the elements that are needed for your cell phones or computers and laptops, all of that mining is typically done in other countries where we don't see what the damage is to the environment or to the people there. And the same could hold true with plastics, that they get shipped or dumped in other places where we don't see the plastic, and we can continue as consumers to just buy up this stuff without thinking. And then when the microplastics come back through the environment and impact the food that we eat, or the water that we drink, or the air that we breathe, it's unbelievable that there is sparked, inflammation in our bodies, that our bodies are irritated. In some cases, they're very toxic. And so when something like a virus like this is let loose, or spills out into the world, our bodies are not prepared to handle the stress of a new bioengineered. It's like an ecosystem that just got deposited in the population. And our bodies are not accustomed to it, nor are they ready. So at the quantum level, what's happening is not a mystery, that our hearts are clearly a conveyor of new information and wise information. And our hearts are being asked to open now in order to receive the new light and the refresh that planet Earth is desiring and wanting. So how to go about that when there's illness at all levels? There's spiritual illness, mental illness, physical illness. And consuming or consumption of palm oils, sugars, things with caffeine or plastics, carbohydrates, the ways that grain is grown, the subsidies that have allowed acres and acres and acres of soil and farmland around the world, not just in the West, but around the world, to be inundated with small nanoparticles of biosynthesized fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. Now these are creating a cloud in your body. And so it could be seen that the coronavirus has appeared to help your bodies clear of these toxins. And by becoming more educated, even unfortunately, if it's through the loss and the pain of overall health, it's almost as if everyone is arguing over the wrong things. And what needs to be discussed is how to open the heart, how to clear the environment of these systemic toxins, not only for your health and your family's health or your loved one's health, but also for the earth and all of the animals on the earth. The birds, the fish, the subspecies of clams and shrimp and lobsters. Just think of all of the animals that are suffering as a result of the choices that are being made daily. And it's easy to wag a finger, right, at corporations or at greed, but that's illogical because it's a system. So for those corporations to be successful, they need buyers of their products. So the system part of it is that everyone is a part of it. Everyone plays a part. And in order to shift consciousness, there needs to be a completely different conversation. Now, a lot of this can be done through spiritual and energetic management. And through that spiritual and meditation and clearing energetically, you'll begin to see different solutions. Does that make sense? So you'll, from a higher perspective, you'll be able to understand what works and what doesn't work on this earth. And then you may or may not be a spokesperson for those things, but you can certainly show up and do your part. So just taking a moment to breathe in, and Archangel Michael really likes to be real with people. You know, we are living in this world, and even though the angelic team do not have material bodies, they do have concern for the whole planet, not just spiritual growth, but the living, breathing components of our earth. Do you see that? Now, this may feel like a bit of a lecture from your parents. Maybe it is. But waving your fists and yelling at one another, or ignoring what the underlying issue is, isn't going to resolve the underlying issue. if I may say, Michael's saying that, for example, in a dysfunctional family, if you are just pinpointing one person as a person to blame, it doesn't make any sense because everyone is a part of a system. And that's the same on our earth, that it is an entire system. So if you feel like blaming anyone today, just put your pointer finger down, take a deep breath in, look back at your own life, and walk with a bit more humility and grace. Just turn and ask the angels to please help you see more clearly. Does that make sense to you? So that you can adjust your perspective and see a whole system. Then rather than shaking your fist or blaming your family or your loved ones, just taking a moment to relax, breathe deeply, and connect with all that is true and all that is well within you. And blessings to all. Just taking a deep breath and connecting in pure light and love for completion, evolution, and desire for connectivity. So it shall be forever.